I died suddenly in the dormitory. To appease my mother, the school arranged a job for her in the cafeteria. Afterwards, my roommates started dying one by one. The police wanted to reinvestigate the cause of my death, but my mother simply scoffed. My daughter died suddenly of illness. How could there be a killer? Rumors spread throughout the school. Dorm room 332 was cursed. Within a month, 3 female students died consecutively. Bed number 1, Lily, died suddenly of illness. Bed number 2, Susan, was strangled to death in the small woods. Bed number 3, Holly, was dismembered, her limbs nowhere to be found. Only bed number 4, Tina, remained alive. She led Susan's and Holly's families, storming into the school cafeteria, pointing at the most crowded food stall. "It's her, what? That food vendor is Lily's mother, she's the killer." Then Tina screamed until her voice was hoarse. "Students, don't eat, you're eating human flesh." Amidst countless screams and sounds of retching, my mother didn't even lift her head. She shakily scooped a spoonful of braised pork, half of it spilling like grains of rice sifting through a sieve, then slammed it onto a tray. She finally put down the long ladle, wiped her calloused hands, pointed at Tina, and cursed, "If you have proof, go to the police. If you're just spouting nonsense, believe it or not, I'll break your bones." Susan's and Holly's parents rushed forward, wanting to drag my mother out of the food stall. My mother brandished a vegetable cleaver, scaring them into retreating. "Cowards!" My mother spat, then turned and yelled at the students in the cafeteria, "Everyone sit down, eat your food. You can't leave until your plates are clean. You're university students, don't you understand the Clean Plate campaign?" The police quickly arrived at the cafeteria and found several pieces of evidence in the kitchen's changing room: a rope with a hangman's knot and a blood-stained, horn-handled knife. The police presented these items to my mother. My mother snorted. "Listen, that rope is for my pull-up exercises. I didn't strangle Susan. The horn-handled knife is for chopping ribs. What does it have to do with Holly? I'm not a killer, I'm a good person." No one believed her flimsy explanations. 3 consecutive murders had occurred, and no murder weapons had been found until now, when they all appeared simultaneously in my mother's locker. The police determined my mother was a major suspect and handcuffed her, taking her to the station. But no one expected that the rope only bore my mother's fingerprints. DNA analysis confirmed the blood on the horn-handled knife was indeed pig's blood. The chain of evidence simply didn't match. The next day, my mother reappeared at the food stall, yelling loudly at the students, "Why are you avoiding me? Come get your food. I told you I'm a good person, why doesn't anyone believe me?" My name is Lily, from bed 332. A month ago, I died quietly in the dormitory. When my roommates found me, my limbs were already stiff. Everyone thought I died suddenly of illness, including me, even after I became a spirit. I only remember that morning, I suddenly felt dizzy and nauseous until I completely lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was a spirit floating in the night sky, watching my mother arguing with the school administrators. "My daughter died in your school. You must compensate me 10 million. My mother threw a tantrum under the dorm building, attracting countless curious students who whispered among themselves, "Who is that auntie?" "That's Lily's mother, the girl who died this morning." "Lily? That name sounds familiar. Oh, I remember now. There were some explicit photos circulating on the school forum, and the girl in them was named Lily." "You mean the girl accused by her roommate of being a homewrecker? No wonder her mother is like this. Like mother, like daughter." The gossip reached my mother's ears, and she became even more agitated. Finally, Principal Wang arrived at the scene, his face dark. He began to negotiate with my mother. He agreed to pay her 1.7 million in compensation in one lump sum, plus a janitorial job in the cafeteria, ensuring her care until old age. The conditions were that my mother was not to cause any more trouble, not to report the case, not to demand an autopsy, and to cooperate with the school in covering up my death. My mother quickly signed the agreement, her eyes crinkling as she happily counted the money in her bank account. Afterward, she went to my dorm, humming a tune as she packed my belongings. Students from nearby rooms crowded the hallway to watch. My mother paid no heed to their stares, her face greedy as she peeled off wallpaper and put it in her bag, muttering estimates for the price of scrap paper. A girl from the next room said indignantly, "Her daughter just died, and she only cares about how much her daughter's things can be sold for. Is this kind of person even worthy of being a mother? Another girl asked curiously. I heard all of Lily's tuition was from student loans, and her living expenses were from part-time jobs. Is that true? An older student who knew me replied, it's true. Her mother not only didn't give her money, but often demanded money from her. Even the dorm manager couldn't stand it and shouted, if Lily saw this, how heartbroken would she be? After my mother left the school, the campus became quiet again. Until the day of my burial, a few close friends came to my hometown to see me off on my final journey. My cheap coffin lay on the ground, surrounded by snow-white paper money. Sounds of muffled sobs echoed throughout the cemetery. The only discordant note was my mother's cursing. She placed one foot on the coffin, contemptuously spat on the ground in front of the villagers and students, and cursed, useless. Born a money pit daughter, then died young. Didn't even get to repay me before kicking the bucket, utterly ungrateful. Under everyone's stunned gaze, my mother violently kicked the coffin and then yelled at the grave digger holding a shovel, hurry up and bury this unlucky thing. Who digs the fastest? I'll give you an extra 1,000 dong. Back home, my mother acted as if nothing had happened, going to the market to buy groceries. Someone recognized her and advised her to suppress her grief, but she smugly said, it's just a daughter, she died, so she died. If she lived to get married, at most I'd get a few $100,000 in bride price, but now that she's dead, I get $1.7 million in compensation, plus a steady job. What a bargain. Is this beef fresh? If not, I won't take it. Now that I have money, I must cook a delicious meal to celebrate. Whether villagers or classmates, everyone cursed my mother as heartless behind her back. But only I knew that what they saw was exactly what my mother wanted them to see. On the 7th day after I was buried, Susan died. She was strangled to death, her body discarded in the small woods. Students who witnessed the scene said Susan's mouth was wide open, but her tongue was inexplicably missing. Crime scene photos and rumors spread everywhere. The school couldn't cover up such a serious murder and grudgingly reported it to the police. Surveillance cameras showed that after receiving a phone call, Susan walked alone towards the small woods. Unfortunately, the cameras didn't capture what happened inside the woods, nor did they record any suspicious person entering. The caller was Susan's boyfriend, Victor Wang, but Victor vehemently denied it, saying his phone had just been lost and he hadn't received his new SIM card yet. The call wasn't from him. Victor's roommate, Chris, vouched for him. During the time of the murder, they were playing games in the dorm. The police interviewed many students. No one believed Victor would kill Susan. They were considered a model couple in school, deeply in love. After learning of Susan's death, Victor was inconsolable. I knew Victor Wang. This arrogant rich kid was completely under Susan's thumb. To put it nicely, he was devoted. To put it harshly, he was a brainless puppet. After Susan's death, Victor holed up in his dorm, getting blackout drunk every night. His roommate, Chris, his closest friend, patiently comforted him. One night, I saw Victor sitting on the floor of the dorm balcony, surrounded by empty wine bottles. Chris consoled him, "Buddy, I know you're hurting. No one can easily accept this separation of life and death. Cry as much as you need to, then let it go. Susan in heaven would surely be heartbroken to see you like this." Victor grabbed a bottle, chugged it dry, his breath reeking of alcohol, and asked Chris, "Old Chris, didn't you like Lily? Susan absolutely forbade you from pursuing her back then. You two argued about it a lot, right? Now that Lily's dead, you act like nothing happened." Chris sneered, "Lily told me she didn't want to date during college. I thought she was a pure maiden. What happened? She went out and became a homewrecker for an old man. Don't even talk about her being dead. Even if she stood naked in front of me, I wouldn't bother to look." The night wind carried those disgusting words right to me. As a spirit, I had no ears to cover. If I could, I truly wanted to turn into a vengeful ghost and tear apart those who spread the rumors. But even now, I didn't know who the instigator of these rumors truly was. Soon after, the police sent an update. Electronic forensics technicians recovered Susan's computer hard drive and found a crucial clue. The person who spread the malicious rumors and defamed me on the forum was the deceased Susan. A few months earlier, deepfake photos of me had been posted on the school forum. The post described me as a homewrecker seducing rich men and even attached my student ID photo. I reported it to the police, but it was useless. The police advised me that slander was a private prosecution case. I would need to sue the forum, obtain the poster's information, and only then could I initiate a prosecution. Or I could just ignore it as if it never happened. Prosecuting and hiring a lawyer required money, but I had none. The post was quickly deleted, but the insults and harassment I endured lasted for months. Even after my death, people were still spreading fake photos. And the original files of these fake photos appeared on Susan's computer. After Susan's death, the police came to my mother and asked if she knew about me being slandered. My mother, while picking chives, angrily cursed, "Of course I know, that ungrateful wretch. I paid for her to get a good education, and she went and became a homewrecker for a rich man. Officer, look, she lived so luxuriously but didn't give me a single cent." The two female police officers were stunned. After they left, I heard them talking privately. Poor child, why did she have such a mother? But I didn't feel sorry for myself. No one knew that on the night Susan died, my mother had avoided everyone, quietly gone to the cemetery, and placed a glass jar in front of my grave. "Lily, look, all those who harmed you must pay blood for blood." Inside the wide-mouthed glass jar was a blood-soaked tongue. The police found no other evidence, as if an invisible hand had wiped away all clues. After Susan's death, only Holly and Tina remained in dorm room 332. Tina was constantly on edge, feeling like someone wanted to harm her, living in perpetual anxiety. Holly, on the other hand, casually went in and out of the cafeteria, completely unconcerned by rumors that Lily's mother in the cafeteria killed Susan. In fact, every time she got food, she deliberately went to the stall my mother was in charge of. In front of everyone, she said to my mother, "Auntie, my name is Holly and I'm Lily's roommate. I don't care if you're Susan's killer or not. Anyway, I never bullied Lily. Wrongdoings have perpetrators, debts have debtors, just don't come for me." My mother rolled her eyes and snapped, "What nonsense are you spouting, girl? I don't have a daughter who is a homewrecker." The surrounding students were amazed by Holly's audacity. Holly carried her tray, sneering contemptuously. "If you haven't done anything wrong, you don't fear ghosts knocking at your door. Move aside, everyone, I need to eat." But had she really done nothing wrong? That night, I saw my mother sneak out of the staff dormitory, evading all surveillance cameras, and slip into the school's administration building. I didn't know how she bypassed the access control system, only that my mother picked the lock to my homeroom teacher's office. She rummaged through the filing cabinet for a long time, finding 2 document bags. These 2 bags contained financial aid applications. On one of them was my name. My mother extended her index finger, gently stroking the 3 characters, "Lily May," on the document bag. But when she opened the bag and took out the application inside, her whole body froze. Inside were just blank A4 papers. I remembered it was 2 months prior. The homeroom teacher announced in the class group that the list for financial aid had been released this year, and eligible students should prepare their applications early. I completed and submitted my application to the teacher, but my application was rejected. "You've already received a scholarship, so you can't apply for financial aid. That's the rule," the teacher told me, but I had checked beforehand. My merit-based scholarship didn't conflict with financial aid. Yet the teacher insisted it wasn't allowed. I had no choice but to give up on applying for financial aid. Many students applied for financial aid, but each class only had 2 spots. According to school regulations, a class meeting should be held to review applicants. Students applying for financial aid had to give a short presentation to the entire class and submit a video of the presentation to the school's review board. The 5th person to present was Holly. She tucked her latest iPhone into her pocket, carried her presentation draft to the podium, anxiously fiddling with her freshly manicured nails. "Hello, everyone, hello, teachers on the review board. My name is Holly. I come from a poor family. When I was very young, my father passed away, and my mother raised me alone. In my childhood, to take care of me, my mother couldn't work full-time, only relying on odd jobs to make ends meet. Later, as I grew up, I could work part-time to help support the family in my spare time. However, my mother unfortunately fell gravely ill. To treat her, we not only used up our meager savings, but also accumulated a large debt." Whispers erupted from the audience. The homeroom teacher repeatedly called for order, but the murmurs persisted. "Holly has no father. Wasn't her father here just last month? Her living expenses are 5,000 yuan a month. Does she still need to work part-time? Last week, I saw her post on Moments complaining that her mother went to Sanya without her. How did she suddenly become gravely ill? Only I knew why." Holly was clearly reading my application. That wasn't just my hardship, it was my life. The whispers grew deafening. I clutched my head, covering my ears, curling up, trying to resist the torment from all around. Holly, with a dismissive glance at me, lowered her head and casually stepped down from the podium. The class review meeting ended. I left the classroom and called to report the matter to the education department. The next day, the vice principal came to see me. "Student Lily, the school is aware of the situation. We've decided to revoke Holly's financial aid eligibility and give her a disciplinary warning. Your homeroom teacher will also be disciplined, their bonus revoked, and if they reoffend, they will be directly dismissed. If you are satisfied with this outcome, please withdraw your complaint. You are a sophomore this year, with more than 2 years until graduation. Making a big deal out of this isn't good for anyone, don't you agree? I guarantee you'll receive financial aid next year." The carrot and stick approach was always the most effective. I could offend my classmates, I could offend my homeroom teacher, but as long as I wanted to graduate, I couldn't offend the school. I thought that was the end of it, but to my surprise, Holly held a grudge against me for it. Having her financial aid eligibility revoked and being disciplined was a huge humiliation for Holly. Especially the strange looks from her classmates, which made her incredibly angry. And her way of venting that anger was to subtly sabotage me, pinning my shirt to the blanket, gluing my textbooks together, mysteriously making my homework disappear. I knew the homeroom teacher wouldn't bother with these trivial matters, and reporting it to the police would also be useless. Even if I had proof, at most it would only be a verbal warning. I wasn't a weakling. If I was bullied, of course I would retaliate. Every time I argued with Holly, Susan and Tina always sided with her. After all, Holly was a generous rich girl, while I was dirt poor, struggling even to eat. The biggest uproar almost led to me fighting Holly. The result was that the next day, after I returned from my part-time job, I was ambushed and beaten black and blue by a few thugs. They insisted they were drunk and just looking for trouble. They were detained for half a month, and the bruises on my body took almost half a month to disappear. It was clear that Holly paid people to beat me, but I had no evidence. Later, when I was slandered, my first reaction was to suspect Holly. The classmates who knew about my conflict with Holly also assumed it was her doing, but she swore a solemn oath in front of the whole class. "If I did this, may I be torn into 1,000 pieces and never find peace in the afterlife." Seeing her earnest expression, most of my classmates, including me, believed her. The rumors could not be suppressed. Soon after, my reputation and Holly's spread together. One was a kept homewrecker, the other was someone jealous of her roommate being a homewrecker, so she spread malicious rumors online. And at that time, I had no idea that the one who spread the false rumors was Susan. To focus on my studies, I bought a sharp knife and carried it with me, placing it under my pillow when I slept. For a long time, only by touching the cold handle of the knife could I fall asleep peacefully. After this incident, Holly never bothered me again. I naturally assumed that someone who valued her reputation like her would hate the real rumor monger even more. Until I died, before becoming a ghost, I still thought so. My mother had never read detective novels, but she had a discerning heart. That night, my mother found 2 document bags in the homeroom teacher's office. One was labeled Lily, the other Holly. On the document Holly submitted, the red "rejected" stamp stood out, just like her fabricated story. In the following days, every day after work, my mother would lock herself in the staff dormitory, carefully examining the traces left in my belongings: pinholes in the blanket, glue in the textbooks, pebbles in the mattress, stains on the wallpaper. My mother categorized these traces, taking photos to document them. In the past, she hated meticulous manual work, even peeling garlic was a chore. But now, my mother used a hairdryer to soften the dried glue, then used tweezers to separate each page of the Fundamentals of Marxism textbook that was stuck together. Finally, she found 2 fingerprints on the glue on page 14. After comparison, they matched perfectly with the fingerprints on Holly's meal tray. A few days later, Holly disappeared. In the same dorm room, 3 female students had consecutive incidents. The rumors in the school could no longer be contained. The school was in complete panic, desperately trying to block the news while organizing a security team to search the entire campus. Paper cannot wrap fire. The news of Holly's disappearance finally reached her parents. The elderly couple rushed to the school and met my mother at the gate. My mother pushed a cart full of yard-long beans, humming a song as she walked in. Holly's father politely asked, "Sister, could you tell me the way to the principal's office?" My mother pointed to the electronic map at the corner of the street and replied curtly, "Go look for it there. Maybe you'll find your ancestors' grave. You're old enough to have hair growing out of your lips and you call me sister? I'll pick some beans to make eyeballs for you." Holly's father kept apologizing, then asked again, "Auntie, I'm Holly's father. I wanted to ask you, have you heard any rumors about my daughter's disappearance recently?" My mother froze, then carefully waved her hand, probing, "Are you back from the dead?" In the principal's office, the vice principal was frowning, recounting Holly's glorious achievements to her parents. Learning that she had stolen my application materials to apply for financial aid, Holly's father's face turned from green to red. He had written that his father was dead, she didn't get the money, and she was disciplined herself. She truly lost both face and a father. Holly's mother slammed the table, yelling at the vice principal. No wonder Lingeling kept saying she wasn't used to the dorm. "Your school tolerates troublemakers like Lily. First, she made my daughter lose her financial aid, and now she's made my daughter disappear, her life or death unknown. Husband, quickly report to the police. Arrest Lily and have her shot." The principal's office door suddenly burst open. My mother stumbled in, laughing. "Lily, she's been dead for a long time, didn't you know?" Holly's mother angrily retorted. "Good riddance. She bullied my daughter, death was too good for her." My mother nodded in agreement, muttering, "Indeed. Whoever bullied my daughter, death was too good for them." The vice principal said irritably, "Auntie Lily, aren't you working in the cafeteria? What are you doing here?" My mother, coming back to her senses, smiled and said, "Didn't you find Holly already? So I rushed over to let everyone know." Holly's father suddenly stood up, so agitated his voice trembled. "Where is she?" My mother pointed out the window and said, "Over there, in the abandoned teaching building." But before she could finish, Holly's parents and the vice principal rushed out, vanishing in a flash around the staircase corner. My mother shrugged, saying to the empty air, "But only part of her was found." She blinked, her rough fingers brushing the hem of her uniform jacket, grabbing the wide-mouthed glass jar from her pocket. Inside was a pair of human eyeballs. Holly died tragically. Near the abandoned teaching building, several students were clutching trees and vomiting. Police investigators searched for a long time, only finding most of Holly's body. The remaining parts were nowhere to be found. What was even more puzzling was that this case was almost identical to Susan's. Investigators checked the surveillance cameras and clearly saw Holly receiving a call from an unknown number, saying a few brief words, then immediately running towards the abandoned teaching building. Similarly, the surveillance cameras still didn't record any images of the killer, and even at the scene, not too many traces were left. It was true that the school's surveillance system was old, and some cameras were broken, but the killer managed to perfectly evade the working cameras. This in itself was the biggest clue. First, the entire school security team was ruled out as suspects. These guards frequently neglected their duties, playing cards in the surveillance room during the day, sleeping in it at night, even skipping meals and taking half a month off to go drinking. Most of the guards couldn't even distinguish which part of the school the surveillance images showed. In theory, anyone could easily sneak into the surveillance room, observe the camera's operational status, and find a perfect route for the crime. Compared to students, school staff didn't need to attend classes, weren't subject to attendance checks, nor were they checked for not returning to the dorm overnight, having more free time to scout. Therefore, the police focused their investigation on school staff. My mother, of course, became one of the suspects again. Simultaneously, another group of investigators was in charge of probing the victims' relationships. Without much effort, they thoroughly investigated the grievances between Lily, Holly, and Susan. They learned that my mother had taken advantage of my death to become a school employee. Even more coincidentally, only part of Holly's body was found. And my mother, being a cafeteria worker, could entirely mix body parts into the food, thereby disposing of the corpse. She had motive and opportunity. The two lines of investigation converged, and my mother immediately became the #1 suspect. The day after Holly's body was discovered, my mother was busy at the cafeteria's food stall as usual. The last surviving female student from room 332 Tina, along with Susan's and Holly's families, stormed into the school cafeteria. "It's her. What? That food vendor is Lily's mother. She's the killer. Students, don't eat. You're eating human flesh." I floated in the air and saw my mother's lips curve slightly. The police quickly arrived at the cafeteria and found two pieces of evidence in the changing room: the rope with a hangman's knot and the blood-stained, horn-handled knife. The evidence was overwhelming. Everyone believed my mother was the killer. But only I knew that this so-called evidence was actually planted by my mother herself. Her purpose was to send a message to the real killer who murdered me: "You are next." The moment the handcuffs clamped shut on my mother's wrists, I saw her still smiling. Her smile wasn't the relief of revenge, nor the calm of accepting fate, but the smug satisfaction of a game well played. In the interrogation room, two police officers were questioning my mother. "The evidence has been sent for testing. The results will be back soon. Honest cooperation will be met with leniency. Resistance will be dealt with severely. I advise you to confess honestly to receive the leniency of the law." My mother, like a shrewish woman, genuinely wronged, banged her cuffed hands on the interrogation table and cursed, "I'll say it again, I am not a murderer." The police officer advised my mother, "We searched the staff dormitory and saw the suspicious points and evidence related to Lily's death that you arranged. Don't worry, if Lily was truly harmed, we will definitely find the killer and bring him to justice." My mother scoffed again. "My daughter died suddenly of illness. How could there be a killer?" The detention period was only 12 hours. Within these 12 hours, the police had to give their all, on one hand trying to reconstruct the crime, and on the other trying to break down my mother's psychological barriers. However, both attempts failed. My mother truly had a motive for the crime. Holly and I had grievances, and Susan spread false rumors about me. Furthermore, my death was unclear. It was entirely reasonable for my mother to seek revenge for me. But my mother had no time to commit the crimes. After reviewing every frame of the surveillance cameras, the police discovered that during the time Susan was strangled, my mother was carrying a sack of potatoes into the prep room, only emerging 2 hours later with a large bowl of sliced potatoes. And during the time Holly was harmed, my mother wasn't at school at all. She was haggling at the farmer's market. Moreover, there was no evidence whatsoever to prove my mother was involved in these two cases. No biological samples of my mother were found in the surveillance room. At both crime scenes, the police compared all footprints, none of which matched my mother's. As for the two suspected murder weapons, they were proven to be unrelated to the cases. When my mother walked out of the police station, the brilliant sunlight shone brightly on her somewhat aged face, sparkling. After my mother was exonerated, the police spoke with Tina, asking her why she believed my mother was the killer. Tina stammered for a long time, unable to speak, instead demanding police protection. The police suspected Tina was involved in the two cases, but current evidence was insufficient to prove she was a suspect, and they couldn't use interrogation methods to break down her psychological barriers. At Tina's request, two female police officers moved into dorm room 332 to protect her closely. In the morning, Tina, as usual, went to the cafeteria with the female police officers. 3 custard buns, a bowl of plain porridge, a cup of soy milk. Halfway through her meal, Tina suddenly froze. A female officer patted her shoulder. "Tina, what's wrong?" Tina struggled to swallow the food in her mouth, forcing a smile. "I suddenly remembered I left something in the dorm. I'll go get it now." "No," another female officer put down her chicken sauce bun. "I'll go with you. Safety first." Tina's eyes darted frantically, then she suddenly stood up and dashed out. She pushed other students aside, leaped over tables and chairs, and ran straight for the cafeteria exit. "Stop! Don't run!" Tina was just a student. Soon, she was caught and subdued by the female officers. One female officer pinned her to the ground, while the other retrieved a greasy piece of paper from Tina's tightly clenched fist. The paper was folded into a small square with half a bite mark on it, clearly hidden inside the custard bun. The female officer opened the paper and read the 2 lines written on it. "I know you killed Lily. Tonight at 10 p.m., Reflection Lake. Let's talk." Reflection Lake was an artificial lake located in the southwest of our school. The scenery by the lake was beautiful. On normal days, the benches along the shore were packed with couples in love. But now it was late autumn. getting dark early, and at 10 p.m., it was deserted outside. No one wanted to sit in the cold, windy outdoors to have a heart-to-heart. 2 minivans were parked by the lake, each packed with police officers. A young male officer quietly asked, "Team 3's actions this morning have spread through the school. Many students know about this. The fish have been spooked. Will we still catch anything?" The middle-aged, bearded male officer chuckled. "The fish aren't spooked yet. Team 1 is still monitoring Lily's mother. She still doesn't know the note was found." The young male officer sighed. Too bad the handwriting comparison didn't match, and the surveillance cameras didn't record who put the note in the bun. Otherwise, we'd have evidence by now. The female officer sitting in the backseat said, "It's fine. Tina has been detained and is being interrogated. As long as she confesses, things will be much easier." Suddenly, the walkie-talkie crackled. Then another female officer's voice came through the walkie-talkie. "Report, target has left the staff dormitory. Team 1 is in pursuit." The middle-aged male officer grabbed the walkie-talkie and quickly said, "Understood. Stick close to the target. All teams, prepare to intercept once the target enters the vicinity of Reflection Lake." The middle-aged male officer hadn't finished speaking when the voice on the walkie-talkie chimed in again. "Captain, the target doesn't seem to be heading to Reflection Lake." Everyone was stunned. "Then what is she doing?" The middle-aged male officer pressed. "She seems to be going square dancing." As the female officer's voice faded, lively music transmitted through the radio signal, blaring from the walkie-talkie speaker. "Vast as the sky and clouds is our love." At the foot of the lush green mountain, where flowers bloomed, the 2 minivans started their engines, their 4 headlights dispelling the inky darkness. The young male officer in the driver's seat pressed the clutch into gear, just about to drive off. Suddenly, the female officer in the back seat pointed to a corner and exclaimed, "There seems to be something in that tree over there." The male officer immediately turned the car around, shining the headlights on the dark shadow in the tree. Hanging from the largest branch of that gloomy pagoda tree was a male student. The rope was cinched tightly around his neck, his body hanging limply, swaying in the night wind. The police rushed over, cut the rope from the branch, and brought the student down, but his body had already begun to stiffen. The young male officer frowned in thought for a moment, then remembered the student's identity. He was Susan's boyfriend, Principal Wang's son, Victor Wang. As the interrogation continued, Tina's psychological defenses slowly crumbled, and the truth was eventually revealed. The real killer who murdered me was Tina. She had crushed a large amount of blood pressure medication and mixed it into my cup of water. Initially, Tina only wanted to exacerbate the conflict between Holly and me, but she accidentally used an overdose, causing my blood pressure to drop suddenly, leading to cardiac arrest and death from shock. Her motive, when revealed, was somewhat absurd. Lily May, an illegitimate child who never had a father, by what right was she so outstanding? In the interrogation room, Tina went wild, her eyes bulging. Do you know what she said in the dorm? She said she looked up the regulations and found that national scholarships and financial aid couldn't be received simultaneously. So she planned to apply for a merit-based scholarship and financial aid so she could get an extra 1,000 yuan. Is that something a human being would say? I hated her. It just so happened that Holly and Susan also disliked her, so I fished in troubled waters, quietly slipping her the drug. If I had controlled the dosage, absolutely no one would have found out it was me. The case was transferred to the prosecutor's office. Presiding over the case officer arranged for my mother to meet Tina's family. Tina's parents knelt before my mother, tears streaming down their faces, saying, "Tina is still a child. She made a mistake and should be given a chance. Please help us, write a letter of forgiveness. Even if we go bankrupt, we will compensate you until you are satisfied." My mother firmly refused. Under everyone's stunned gaze, my mother's lips curved slightly. She handed the case officer a pre-written letter of forgiveness. "I've already written the letter of forgiveness. As for compensation, well, I have lung cancer and only 6 months left to live. What good would a lot of compensation do me? You all are right, Tina is just a child." Soon after, the court pronounced its sentence. Tina was convicted of intentional bodily harm and sentenced to 7 years in prison. The day after the sentencing, my mother brought the verdict to my grave. This was the 3rd offering she had brought me. The previous 2 offerings were a tongue and a pair of eyes, respectively. "Daughter, you can rest in peace now." My mother leaned against my tombstone, opened a cheap bottle of white wine, and chugged it dry. From a young age, I wished you to be ambitious and righteous. What could be fought for, you must fight for fiercely. Daughter, I regret it. I truly regret it. If you hadn't fought for that financial aid scholarship, if you had been a little less righteous, would our fate have been different? The bottle was raised and lowered. I saw her eyes red as she stroked the 3 characters, Lily May, on the tombstone. Mother is uneducated, but mother is not a shrewish woman. If you, as a spirit, saw me creating a scene at your school, you would surely be embarrassed. But I had no other choice. If I didn't make a scene, how would I know who had a guilty conscience? That Principal Wang was eager to silence people with money, which proved he definitely had something to hide. My mother, while drinking, rambled on, recounting the entire truth. It turned out my mother truly didn't kill anyone. She was just stirring the pot, inciting wolves to devour each other. The one who killed Susan was actually Holly. 2 days before Susan was harmed, my mother had sought out Holly and spoken with her. My daughter was killed by Susan, and she intended to pin the blame on you. Unfortunately, she didn't realize I didn't want revenge for my daughter, I just wanted to make some quick cash. Susan's boyfriend is Victor Wang, and Victor Wang's father is Principal Wang. The crime of covering up would lead to jail time. Principal Wang didn't want his son to take risks, so he gave me 1.7 million to silence me. The rest, you can figure out yourself. My mother finished speaking and turned to leave. Holly pulled my mother back and asked, "Why should I believe you? Why are you telling me all this?" My mother smiled and said, "Believe it or not, it's up to you. If you want to prevent future troubles, make sure you clean up thoroughly. Anyway, Lily and I are mother and daughter. Give me Susan's tongue, consider it an explanation for Lily." At that time, my mother didn't know who the real killer who murdered me was. She only intended to sow discord between Holly and Susan so they would destroy each other. But she also didn't expect that before she could figure out how to incite Susan, Holly had already acted viciously. Moreover, Holly was very clean, leaving no traces on the surveillance cameras. During the meeting when she received Susan's tongue, my mother asked Holly how she did it. Holly snorted. Which cameras work and which don't, isn't that decided by the school? The route Victor and Susan took to the small woods for their date would absolutely not be recorded by cameras. I stole Victor's phone, and in the name of Victor's lover, sent a provocative message to Susan. That foolish Susan really took the bait, haha. She held Susan's tongue and laughed hysterically. Holly never knew, even to her death, that everything she said had been fully recorded by my mother, and then given to Victor. After Susan's death, Victor Wang's spirit was almost broken. Upon learning that Holly had killed his girlfriend Susan, Victor immediately planned to take Holly to the abandoned dormitory building. That night, I witnessed the person who bullied me die tragically under a cold blade, but I felt no pleasure from revenge. What would happen to my mother? She incited Holly to kill Susan, and then incited Victor to kill Holly. If Victor were still alive, once the case was discovered, my mother would certainly go to jail. I didn't expect that when I met my mother again. Victor Wang's first words were, "Auntie Lily, my wish has been fulfilled. I can go find Susan now." Victor told my mother he planned to commit suicide at Reflection Lake because that was where he and Susan first met. My mother then used her own trick against her, writing a note and hiding it in the custard bun Tina bought every day. "I know you killed Lily. Tonight at 10 p.m., Reflection Lake. Let's talk." To ensure the handwriting wouldn't be recognized, she deliberately found a calligraphy practice book and meticulously traced each stroke with her left hand. Sure enough, Tina took the bait. The police caught her red-handed. Victor Wang's death was not part of my mother's plan. She only wanted to personally kill Tina, completing the final circle of revenge for me. My mother said that if she could, she wanted to personally kill all those who harmed me. But my mother was sick. A year ago, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. The doctor said that without treatment, she would live at most 2 years, but even with the most expensive targeted drug, osimertinib, it would only extend her life by 6 years. After health insurance coverage, each box still cost 5580 yuan. Chemotherapy, radiation therapy, surgery, palliative care. Extending her life by 6 years would cost at least 1.5 million yuan. For us, the poor, that was a huge sum, but I refused to give up. I worked hard to earn money, saved on expenses, and sent every penny to my mother. The surrounding classmates who didn't know the story all called my mother a vampire. No, that's not it. Mother was a sick tree. I was the last remaining leaf, struggling to transmit nutrients to her, hoping to help her survive the harsh winter. And when I withered, dried up, and had no strength left, nothing could stop this furious tree. This uneducated middle-aged woman had, on her own, grasped the principle of borrowing a knife to kill. Many suspected my mother, but there was no evidence to prove that the murders in dorm room 332 were related to her. The day Tina was released from prison, white snow fell heavily. Due to good behavior in prison, her 7-year sentence had been reduced to 4 years. She was overjoyed, stepping out of the prison gates with light steps, running towards the freedom that belonged to her. "Mom, Dad, I'm home." Tina's parents ran to her, and the three embraced tightly. "It's good to be home. Don't make mistakes again in the future." Hearing her father say that, Tina choked back a sob and nodded. "Mom, Dad, I will definitely turn over a new leaf and start a new life. This nightmare is finally over." Suddenly, a thin hand reached out from the side, gently patting Tina's shoulder. Tina turned her head in surprise, her eyes meeting my mother's. My mother smiled at Tina and said, "Nightmares never end." The day my mother and I met, the village roadsides were covered in snow-white jasmine flowers. Teacher Zhao, the most educated man in the village, saw the abandoned child in my mother's arms and pondered for a moment, saying, "Lychees are fragrant, plums are delicate, snow is translucent, coming to Chang'an to bring a little coolness to summer." Jasmine flowers bloomed white as snow outside the window. This child should be named Lily. The day my mother and I were reunited, the snow fell as thickly as the jasmine flowers that day.